Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Suri Sessions. Today let's discuss about another important topic with regards to the group by, aggregate functions, having and order by queries. So before we go into the practical way, let's first discuss about these concepts in detail and then we can play around with the practical examples and see how we can actually filter the data using these functions and the commands. So I think to start with, let's first discuss about the aggregate functions. What are aggregate functions? As the name suggests, aggregate functions help us to aggregate the data from the available data set. Say for example, if you want to sort or if you want to count or if you want to do play around with the data, if you want to see what is the maximum earnings, what is the minimum earnings, and how many employees you got. So likewise, there are so many real-time scenarios where you need to see the aggregation of the data. So in the SQL, we got these 5 important aggregation functions which can be used along with the select statement if you want to aggregate the whole data. So coming to the first one, min function, as the name suggests, it returns the smallest value of the column. So as soon as you input the column name between the parentheses, it will dictate what is the smallest value available within the SQL table. And on the other hand, max will return the largest value of the column. So it will again go into the table and check what are the values the column is holding, and then it will pick up the largest value of it. And count, as the name suggests, it will count the number of rows matching to that criteria. Say for example, if you input count of particular column name, it will count how many records it's holding within the table. Sum, as the name suggests, sum will return the sum of the column. So as soon as you put sum of particular column, it will sum up all the values it's holding within the table. Whereas average, which returns the average of the column. I hope you all know what is average. So it's basically on an average based on the number of records, it will divide by that particular number. Say for example, if we have 1 and 2 records, it will basically do 1 plus 2 divided by total number of records, which is 2. So that's the value it's going to throw up. So likewise, we have these particular 5 functions which we can play around in the SQL. So before we go into the practical example, so let's talk about another important topic within SQL database, which is group by. What is group by? Group by, which actually groups the data sets from more than one table. You might be thinking, oh, we already have a join command where we can actually group the data. Yes, you can use join command to join the tables, but in order to group the data sets from that particular tables, you should use group by. And the important thing about group by is it can be used with the aggregation. So that means you can play around the select statement using the group by as well as aggregate functions. So this is most powerful command which will be very helpful when you go in the real time if you want to group particular data if you along with the aggregate functions. This is your best spot. And having, what is having? Having is kind of a substitute for the where clause. As you know, the where clause will actually put up a condition when you do the select statement, but the where clause will work only for the non-aggregated functions. What if the select statement already holding some aggregate functions, and if you want to use group by along with where clause, it won't work. You should be using having clause, which will help us to define the particular condition to filter the data. And another important command is order by. What is order by? Order by sorts the data, basically the output data, whatever we retrieve using the select statement, it will sort the data in ascending or descending order. By default, if you don't mention anything, it will sort the data in ascending order, which is from smallest to largest or A to Z, whereas descending is the other way, largest to smallest or character Z to character A. So lie around in practical examples. Let's start with the aggregation functions. So to start with, I think as we discussed, I've prepared some queries to play around with the 5 aggregation functions. So before that, let's see what data we hold in the product table. So the product table is holding 10 records with the list of sales ID, product name, currency, and price. So let's start using the aggregated functions. The first one I want to see, since we have a price as the key numeric column, I wanted to play around with that. So I'm going to write first statement as select main of column name. In this case, I want to see the price. What is the minimum price for this table? So when you run this command, it's going to show up the minimum price. You could see from the data 5 is the minimum value. So let's see what will turn up here. So you could see 5 as the output. So you could see it's saying no column no, because we have not defined any alias. You can even call this as like minimum price. So that will give us a column name as minimum price, which is of 5. So likewise, what is the maximum price? So it's again going to the table, which is 1000. If you go to the table, you could see 1000 is the maximum price, even though it holds for a couple of records, but still that's a unique value we got. So now average, as I said, average will actually sum up all the records and it divide by the number of records. So let's go with the average function. In this case, it's going to sum up everything and it divides by number 10. So let's see what's the average price. So this is it. This is the average price we got. And now I want to see what's the sum of the price. So it's basically the total value of the prices. So let's see, it is 3135. So you could see 3135 is the sum and average is 313.5, which is basically 3135 by 10. So now count of product name. So why I want a count? So why in this case I have only put product name, not price. You can even put price, but why I put product name was, since count will actually provide the count, you can use any column from this record except the sales ID, because ideally you should always use the unique column. So in this case, instead of product name, I think product name is also not unique. I'll probably use product ID because that's unique for that table. So when you use this, it will give us 10, which is correct because we got 10 records. What if I use product name? Any guesses? Since we have in total we got only 7 products, but we got a repetition of 3 products which was assigned to particular sales ID. So when you do that, it will only give you 10. Why? Why it's not giving 7? Because it's not unique. So why we got 10? Ideally we shouldn't be getting 10. We should only get 7 products we got. But SQL cannot define whether it's a unique column or it's containing any duplicate records. So to avoid that, we have a command within SQL. If you put distinct in front of the column name, now see what happens. It will only count the distinct values of the product name, which is of 7. But if you use this distinct for the product IDs, the count will still be 10. You know why? Because product ID is a primary key which is always unique. So to be on safer side, even if you forget distinct, I would suggest you use the primary key always. That will give you the actual count of the records. But there is another option you can do. You can simply say count star. What will happen? It will just count everything which is of 10 records. So you can do count star or you can define a column name. So likewise, these are the practical examples for the aggregation. So now let's go further ahead with the group by, having, and order. So in order to group by, having, and order by, so I've created a syntax which we need to follow for all the queries. The syntax is, you should first put up a select keyword and you should define what column names you would like to fetch and whether you would like to use any aggregation within it, from what table you want to retrieve the records. Then you need to define the group by, on what column names you are actually grouping the data, and then having If you want to use any condition while grouping the data, you can use having, and then order by. As I said, by default order by will always do the ascending. In case if you want to do descending, then you can put DESC, which denotes descending. So this is the syntax if you want to use group by, having and order by in one single query. So now, since we got data and since we got basic understanding, let's play around with some examples. So let's go to the customers table. If you see the customers table, you have 3 records in the customer. So now if you do, say for example, I would like to see for each country how many customers we hold. So when I do this, so you could see here every customer as a unique country. So ideally when I do this command, it's going to give me a country name and the number of customers within the country from customers table group by customer name. I think it should be country since we want the grouping on the countries. So when I run this command, what will happen? It will give you 1 1 1 because we have only one customer per each country. What if I want to say for example, I'll insert one more record into customer. So whereas I'll call it as number 4 and name is customer 4 and address can be anything. I'll just put Forter Street and country I'm going to put London, city London and country UK. So now I have added one more record, one row affected. So let's search now. Now we got 4 records. So if I run this query again, what will happen? Now you will see the difference. You could see country UK, you could see 2 records now. So the group by command is helping out to see the data grouping based on particular column name. In this case, country. So now let's go further and use some other aggregation functions along with the joins. Since we already played around with the joins, what I'm doing in this command is I'm joining customer table with sales table and product table based on the primary and foreign key. And what I want to know is like I want to see for each customer how much money they have spent as part of the sales. So to achieve that, I'll put up the command select customer name, comma, aggregation. Here I have used sum of price and I'm aliasing it as price. Now group by customer name, order by is also customer name. So let's run this query. When you run this query, you could see customer 1 spent 2505, customer 2 3 and customer 4 530. Why there is no customer 3? Since we don't have equivalent records within sales and product table when you do the join. So if you want to see why it is missing, you can always use left join, then you will know what happens. You could see customer 3 is null because customer 3 haven't spent any money, he haven't made any sales. So let's go back to inner join. So now this has given us a grouping of the customer names followed by the price they have spent. So this is one way we got it. Now let's go one more step and let's do, what if I just want to see how many customers have actually spent more than $100 US. So in order to do that, we have a having clause which we discussed. Having, so what I want to define here is I want the sum of price should be at least 100. So what I do, I'll put sum of price greater than 100. Now what will happen? Ideally we shouldn't be seeing customer 2. Yes, here it is. Now you could only see customer 1 and customer 4 because customer 2 has spent less than 100. In this case it is $30 US. So using these commands, you can aggregate, you can filter the data and you can order the data. Since I ordered by customer name without any details, it's going in an ascending order. If you want descending, you just put desc command, then you should see the descending order, cust 4 and cust 1. So in a nutshell, this is how we use group by, having, order by in conjunction with joins, in conjunction with aggregation. So this query is very powerful. You could see we are doing aggregation, group by, having, order by, joins. So in real time, you should come across in such situations where you have to use all these 5 scenarios. So keep in mind, based on the situation, you can use the respective aggregation and respective grouping and respective filtering. I hope this session is helpful to you. See you in the next class. Please do like, share and subscribe our channel. Signing off, Suri.